I'd failed as a realtor. Baseball was now, in my mind, over. And I'm like, literally, I have no idea what to do with my life. It was not flipping houses that was the smartest thing I did. It was social media.
Right.
So for anyone listening, trust me, it's a foundational piece. But
you know, you've done a lot of flipping and you teach that. I know you teach the flipping and the wholesaling, which is a fantastic way. You know, if you're listening or watching and you need to make some quick cash, you know, a lot of people progress from that into buying cash flowing real estate like you did.
That's literally my path.
Yeah, exactly. You start with the flipping, wholesaling. You build up some cash. Maybe you buy some smaller stuff. You buy a 10 unit, 20 unit, whatever.
My first one was a 10 unit.
That's it. There you go. And then you go into the larger stuff. So talk about some of the hurdles that you had to overcome when you're a hustler. I mean, you're very, very driven, but speak to the ones, you know, the people that are listening or watching that maybe are a little afraid of this, and maybe help them by talking about some of the overcoming any fear that you may have had or any hurdles that you had when you first got started.
Well, I'll tell you, like, I became a realtor in 2010 and I didn't do my first flip until 2015. So you would think, dude, like you're a realtor, you understand how to flip, but you don't.
Right.
So literally for 5 years, I wasted time.
Wow.
And I knew I wanted to flip because I just knew I was always good at finding deals, but I was missing one little piece. And that one piece was hard money lenders. I just didn't know what they were. They don't teach you that in realtor school.
Right.
They're like, bro, there's 30-year loans. There's FHA. There's conventional. If you don't have taxes, you can't get a loan. And that's where I was at. I was making $7,000 a year. So like, it's not like I can go get a loan.
There's no debt to income you're going to qualify for.
No, I'm not qualified. I'll qualify for a $100 a month house.
Right.
So
hard money lenders opened it up for you. Just knowing that they existed and you could go out there and
literally, my life changed in 2014. So, you know, I'm on my 1-year anniversary with my wife. And we got married super young. She just turned 21 when we got married.
Wow.
And, you know, I'm flipping couches at this point, making good money. But I was praying. I was like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? Like, I'm not going to flip couches the rest of my life. This baseball thing isn't working out. At this point, I had already quit being a realtor because I hated it.
Right.
And I'd failed at it. So I'm like,
really? That surprises me because you're a great communicator. But okay.
I wasn't, I mean, when I was 21, I was not the way I am today.
Okay.
Right. So like, I sucked as a realtor. I literally have not even made 6 figures in my career as a realtor.
Well, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
Because you might still be doing it otherwise.
No, yeah. Right. So I already knew it wasn't for me. But, you know, I'm at this crossroads 1 year into marriage where I'm like, I failed at baseball. I failed as a realtor. I'm flipping couches. Even though it's making money, it's like kind of weird and whatever. And so I prayed. I was like, God, what should I do? And I know I'm meant for more. And I hear this whisper, and I've only heard a couple of times where like clearly God tell me to do something. And this was one of them. And he was like, real estate. And I was like, real estate? I already failed at that. Like, real estate sucks. And within 5 minutes, I see a TV commercial for this real estate seminar. And it's like, hey, learn to flip houses with no money and blah, 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 right? And I was like, scam.
Right.
You know, that
That's
ain't
the first thing you think, right?
Yeah, this is 2014. You know, there's no Instagram. There's like, YouTube's not really this big, like information is not freely available.
Right.
Right. And, you know, I watch it. I'm like, scam. But like something within me was like, no, look into it. So I got on Google. I searched, can you flip houses with no money? I just never even thought to search that. And I come across this site called Bigger Pockets. And then I come across these forums and I start reading them. And then I see there's this book by this guy, Brandon Turner, that's, you know, how to buy houses with no and low money down. And I literally buy the book while I'm on the anniversary. I read it in a sitting. And I was like, holy crap. I really can buy houses with no money. There's these hard money lenders who will lend me pretty much all of it. And I just got to figure out how to fund the rest. And I was like, I have credit cards. I'm just going to go max out my credit cards and get 0%, you know, interest and do that. And so I told my wife, I go, babe, you know, we're a year into marriage. I'm like, I'm going to flip houses. And she's like, do it. I go,
she supported you. Good. That's so
every
important.
crazy
So
idea.
important.
She's always supported me. But I go, but here's the thing. And this was our first test, I guess, in marriage. I was like, here's the thing. I'm going to have to max out both of our credit cards to do this.
First two.
Yep. And she's like, okay, whatever. Like, she's always just been down for whatever, right?
She believed in you.
Yeah. And so, you know, we end up doing it. A couple of months later, I get my first deal. We flip it, make 25 grand within 58 days. It was crazy. And I was like, I cannot believe I just made 25 grand that quick.
Right.
Like that would have been so many couches. That's 100 couches to do that. And so I was like, I'm all in on this real estate thing. Like investing is the thing. And so I went from 5 flips that year to 20 the next year to 50 the next year to 150 in the 4th year. And I just kept turning and burning flips after flips after flips.
I want to talk about that. But you know what? Before I move into that incredibly like meteoric growth, I want to ask some questions about that. I want to talk about failure for a second, because when you were interviewing me, we talked about failure for a minute. And so many people fear failure. Can you talk about your early experience with failure and how it really molded and or conditioned you to deal with it?
Let me tell you, dude, like very few people can relate to this because not many have played pro sports. But to give you some context to where my mind was at when I got married, okay, I'd spent my entire life being the best. I'm a great athlete, all-American, starting, everything. So everybody, like everything I've ever done, I was dominating ever since I was 10 years old, right? And I'm going down the career path. I'm making varsity as a freshman in high school, starting shortstop. I'm getting a D1 full ride, freshman All-American, freshman of the year. I get drafted my junior year. I'm playing, pro baseball. Like everything's going according to plan. My 3rd season, after my 3rd season, I'm getting ready for my 4th season. I'm in spring training, 23 years old, about to turn 24. They call me in the office, and you know what happens when they call you in the office. They're going to get rid of you.
Oh.
And like, I just knew. And they walk in, I'm 23. They're like, hey, looks like the big league team is, this guy in AAA is not going to be moving up. So now that's creating a backlog. So now the guy in AA doesn't get to move up. And you're the guy who's supposed to go to AA. But now that guy's still having to be there, there's no room for you. And, unfortunately, we got to let you go. And you got to just realize that, like, when you're 23 and you're basically being told that everything you've ever dreamed about and worked for is over and you're no longer good enough, the mental, just everything that goes with that.
I can't even imagine.
And from going to, I'm the man my whole life, to being told you're not good enough for the first time. Most athletes don't know how to deal with it, and they just never
Some
recover.
never recover.
Most never recover.
Right.
And so I call, at my time, she's my fiance. I'm like, hey, like I just got released. Like, I'm coming home. I'm not going off to the season. And so I go home, and I can honestly say that was probably the only time in my life I was depressed. I've never been a depressed guy. I've always had faith. But at that point, I was really at a crossroads where I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do? Because number one, I always assumed I'd get to the big leagues, and that's where I was going to make money and my life was going to be. Number two, I'm engaged and I'm about to get married in about 6 months. Like, we literally plan to get married after the season. So now I'm like, am I even going to keep playing baseball? What's the deal here? And then 3, the even scarier realization set in of like, what am I going to do to make money? Because up to this point, I hadn't started flipping couches yet. I'd failed as a realtor. Baseball was now, in my mind, over. And I'm like, literally, I have no idea what to do with my life.
Right. Wow.
And, I pitied myself for about a week, literally like just moping. I ended up getting some calls to go play in other leagues. And I didn't even want to play because I was literally like, well, this league sucks. That's not, with these affiliated baseball, I don't want to play that league. And they're like, well, dude, you can play in front of 5,000 people every night in Fargo, North Dakota, man. And they're like, a lot of people from our league end up getting signed back into, affiliated baseball. And you'll have fun. You'll do it. You're going to get playing time, all that. So finally, I was like, you know what? I already trained. I might as well just go give it one last shot and see how it goes. And so I went and played. Had a blast doing it.
In Fargo.
I played in Fargo.
No kidding.
Mid-season, I got traded to Dallas, Texas. So I lived I've lived everywhere from sports. But inflation is crazy. Right now, $3 won't even get you a gallon of gas or a cup of coffee. But the good news is it'll get you my wholesaling blueprint and a trial to Wealthy University. You might be wondering, Ryan, what are those? Well, Wealthy University is our online community where you're going to be able to network with 6, 7, and 8-figure real estate investors and entrepreneurs. We have live calls every single week. You can come and ask me questions directly every single Tuesday, and you have access to all of our courses, all the recordings of WealthCon, and exclusive events. Along with that, you're also going to get our wholesaler's blueprint, which is going to give you all the scripts we use when we talk to sellers, all the contracts that we've used to lock up hundreds of deals, and you'll even get my contractor's guide, which gives you all of the materials we use in our house flips. And if that wasn't enough, I'm also going to give you a copy of my 2 books, The Wealthy Way and Flip Your Future. All of that will be yours for just $3 by going to wealthyuniversity.com. There is no better deal for $3, especially when inflation's on the rise. So instead of maybe getting half a cup of coffee, go to wealthyuniversity.com and go get the wholesaler's blueprint and your trial today. You know, I ended up playing that season. I like developed my love for baseball again. You know, had a great time, a great season. Lots of teams wanted me after that. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling good about myself. I ended up getting married, you know, right when I get home. And that was the start of the journey where I was like, well, I'm definitely way further from my baseball dream than I thought, you know, and it's probably not going to work out, even though I had a good season. Like, I'm still really far. I got to really figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And the point with that story is that I had a dream that clearly had a timeline. You know, for most people in their careers, any of us can start real estate tomorrow.
Right.
You could be 50, you could be 60, you could be 30. It doesn't matter. We can all start tomorrow. You could start being an entrepreneur tomorrow and do it the rest of your life. Right. But in pro sports, there's a lifespan. And I knew that my lifespan was about to end. And that was like kind of, that was the hard thing for me to accept. But it was also like, in hindsight, now looking back, when I look at business today and I look at failure in business, I see how much failure I had in pro sports, and it makes me laugh at business failure because it's literally nothing.
Well, you talked about all the hate you got from, you know, when you fail on the field and everybody's booing you and all that.
You get booed.
Yeah.
Think about like how different sports is for your ego. Okay, number one, everyone can see your statistics. Just so, like, imagine if everyone could see your bank account every day.
Oh, wow. That's a great analogy.
That's literally what it is in sports.
Wow.
You know how much people get paid. You know their contracts. You know their stats. People talk about you. People boo you in person.
Wow.
Talk crap to your face, right? So, number one, from a transparency standpoint, nothing is even close.
Right.
Number two, it is the ultimate, like, ego, pride, alpha thing you can do. We're going head to head.
Right.
And I'm going to either bust you up or you're going to bust me up. One of the two is going to happen. You don't really see that too much in business.
Right.
So I'm used to competing and going after people's throats. I don't give a crap. So I learned that from sports. Third, we talked about just in baseball in general, 7 out of 10 times you will get out and you will fail. You will strike out.
Right.
And
7 out of 10 times. Right?
7 out of 10 if you're good.
Right.
And so I was already used to failing. The other part of it too, with just roughing it, and this helped me in business later, is like, okay, I was making $1,200 a month for 8 years. Tell me who else is willing to pursue a dream for 8 years, making no money. People get butthurt when they can't do a dream for 90 days. I'm like, you're the softest person on earth. So that's another thing. But then also too, think about for 8 years, I lived in a different city every year.
Wow.
I slept at somebody's house or a hotel or something else I had to pay for as well, off the $1,200 for, 6 months out of the year. We took bus trips from Canada to Texas, slept at motels, did that for a 100-game season. You have 100 games and 110 days. So you don't have off days.
Wow.
So like, I look back in hindsight now, and then I wonder, people wonder why it's like, why don't you get fazed by stuff? I'm like, bro, business is like nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Compared to that. I wanted you guys to hear that story just because, that talk about conditioning you to be okay with failure. And so many people fear failure. I talk about it all the time. And, don't fear failure. We fail our way to success. Well, spend a little time talking about how because you're obviously incredible at putting teams together. For you to go from 5 flips to 150 flips in that short a time span. Talk a little bit about, that process? Because I know I've got listeners that they want to go big in multifamily. They want to build teams. They want to do more than just, 10, 20, 30 units. They want 1,000. I've got Warriors coaching students that have thousands. But talk about how you ramp that so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, that's another aspect of sports too, right? Teams.
Teams. Okay.
I had to literally learn how to deal with crazy egos, different personalities. We literally lived with each other 24/7.
Wow.
We showered with each other.
Right.
So you see a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And
things that can't be unseen. Right?
I've seen more weird stuff than you can ever imagine. So, just making me think about it. It's so funny. But, I could deal with anything. That's why I love it. But building teams is very much like sports. You got to have culture. You got to have standards. You've got to have rules. You've got to have KPIs and metrics and accountability and all those things. And I think a lot of it came natural to me from being in that environment my whole life. And so when I first started hiring people, I was winging it, dude.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, you want to call for me? Cool. You're hired.
Wow. Okay.
You want to go check projects for me? You have no experience? Cool. Like, just go. This is how I was doing it. Just go and do it. Right. And it works to a degree, but over time you realize there's personality tests, there's hiring process, there's comp plans, there's all these other things that you can do. But my point with that is when you're first scaling and starting, you don't need to be perfect. You can get by just winging it.
It's a great advice.
And you'll figure it out along the way.
Because otherwise you get locked up and you'll never take action.
No, they're like, but that's Ryan, what about advice. SOPs and personality tests and the things you talk about? I'm like, yeah, I use those today.
Right.
You're hiring your first employee. You don't need all that today.
Right.
So basically, I just kind of failed my way there too.
Really good advice because, so many people, in my space, in the multifamily space, it's a lot of analytical people.
Oh, yeah.
They'll get caught up in the minutia and they won't take action. And so I'm really glad you said what you just said. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to go do it.
Just do it.
Bottom line.
Do it.
Now you said that,
well, let me add to this part too. Okay. The reason I think I was so good at delegating from the get-go was because I kept playing baseball until 2017. So by 2017, I had done already about 60 flips while I was playing.
Wow.
And I had a choice to make. The choice was, especially in the early stage, it was either quit playing baseball and go all in on this real estate thing, or figure out how to do both. And I chose both. I was like, I'm not quitting baseball.
Right.
Like, I know I will have to quit baseball at some point, and real estate will always be there. That will never go away. So I was like, I'm going to keep playing, and I'm going to figure out how this thing could still run even when I am thousands of miles away.
Wow.
And so I started hiring people out the gate out of necessity, and I learned trust really quickly because clearly I was still playing and deals were getting done and renovated. I was like, this is not that hard. Like,
That's I can totally see because you were forced to do it.
I was forced. I didn't have a choice.
Forced to use other people. So guys, those of you listening, think about what you do now and think about how because you all have superpowers, you've got skills, you've got history, you've got experiences that will very often lend themselves to help you move forward in business, help you move forward in flipping and wholesaling with Ryan or in multifamily with me. And so think about those because I promise you they're there. It's things that you use, skills that you used in your day-to-day that will transmute into, the business environment. So, let's talk for a minute about your incredible success in social media because it's like sometimes I look at the number of people you've got following you and it just blows my mind. Talk about how that manifested and, did it all come from the podcast? Did it do, because you've got an incredible studio here. It's obvious you're standing, behind the camera or in front of the camera very, very often. And, talk a little bit about how you built that. And,
So, up to COVID, I didn't take social media super seriously. I had.
Oh, really?
No, I was doing like a bunch of flips. I was flipping. Okay. I was making so much money flipping that I was.
You know what? Let me stop you for once. So why am I asking him this question? Because guys, if you're going to get into any business, creating reach is critical, especially in what's coming, because you're going to need to raise money. Especially if you're doing multifamily, you need to raise money, and social media is the easiest and fastest way to create that reach. So don't tune out because you're thinking, what's the value of this? Okay,
100%.
Sorry.
Yeah, social media. By the way, it was not flipping houses that was the smartest thing I did. It was social media.
Right.
So for anyone listening, trust me, like it's a foundational piece. But yeah, up until COVID, I had like 5,000 followers. I would just randomly post about what I was doing locally here in Vegas. I literally just used it to get deals and lenders.
Wow.
Even at 5,000 followers, I was able to get millions of dollars of lenders for my flips.
No kidding.
I was able to get deal flow for flips. And I was a believer in social media. I just wasn't like a believer in going all in and going crazy.
Was this Facebook at the time?
Literally Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook.
That was
and
all
Instagram.
I had.
Okay.
So then COVID hit, and I literally had 50 houses, just in some form. They were either, I bought them and we're fixing them up. They're on the market. They're in escrow, whatever the case was. And I don't know how much debt that was, but it was probably like 15-ish million, 20 million, something like that. Right. And so they're talking about everything crashing and all this stuff. And I'm like, dang, dude, like, am I about to just lose all these? Like, I don't know. Right. And so this was the second time I ever heard from God in like a clear way. And I prayed again. Every time I'm in turmoil, the beauty of being a believer is that it's not just you, right? So I've been a Christian like ever since I was young, man. I grew up in the church and faith has always been integral in everything I've done. And so I was like, God, what do I do? Do I try to just sell off these houses and like, is it going to be bad? Is it like, I don't know. And, but I'm at a crossroads here because I literally can't do anything. They're not letting us out the house.
Right.
Like they closed certain businesses. You can't even like get supplies. You can't like even do a transaction in some cases. So I'm like, what can I actually do right now? Because I'm always just moving.
Right.
And for some reason, like when God speaks, sometimes it's like you just see it or hear it. Other times it's through other people. And in this case, it was through other people. At that point, I started having people tell me, you should do YouTube. And so first person just texts me out of the blue. They're like, Ryan, have you thought about doing YouTube? And I was like, no, who watches YouTube? Then I had somebody DM me on Instagram, like, Ryan, dude, your content would be really good on YouTube. And I'm like, I'm a guy who's very observant. I'm like,
so
okay.
You had to hear it a couple times.
Yeah. And I'm like, like nobody has told me that like anytime, like this is weird that this, and then it happened a third time. And I was like, I understand, God, what you were telling me. Okay. So I said, hey, show me like, so then I made a post on Instagram. I go, hey, who are the YouTubers you guys watch? Like, what do you even like? And so people started and I started getting a lot of the same answers. They're like, hey, we like this guy, Graham Stephan. We like this guy, Meet Kevin, and everything else. And I'm like, okay, like, let's see what these guys are doing. And so I start watching YouTube because I never did before. I literally did not watch YouTube. My wife is a YouTube. She loves YouTube, but she likes watching like family vlogs and stuff.
Sure.
She's been watching YouTube for like ever since we were married. And I always made fun of her because I'm like, why do you do this? And she's like, you should do it. Like she always told me that.
Oh, wow.
But I never listened. So she was always right. But I start watching their videos and Graham and Kevin are talking about real estate. And I'm like, dude, like, what are they doing? Well, they weren't really doing anything. They, Graham had a couple of rentals and Kevin had a few rentals and they're both agents. And like, I'm like, wait, but so why do you guys listen to them for real estate? They're not even like, this ain't even their thing. They're YouTubers. And they're like, what? But their content's good. I was like, are there really no like YouTubers who are actually full-time in the business and YouTube's more of like the side thing?
Right.
And they're like, no. I was like, okay. I mean,
Blue Ocean.
Yeah, I was like, if this is really it, then okay, I'll do it.
Wow.
And what made me really do it though, and all those guys are my friends.
So that's
now.
where you took off was YouTube. I didn't know that.
YouTube and TikTok.
Okay.
So I'll talk about how that happened. But like, they're both my friends now. Graham and I have actually raised a fund together and bought real estate since then. Kevin's speaking at the next WealthCon.
Okay.
So they won't be mad that I say this, but I was like, dude, okay, these guys really aren't doing anything in terms of the real estate side. But then they both made videos about how much they were making as YouTubers. And I was like, dude, what do they make as YouTubers? I don't even know. Graham and him both had similar results. They were like, yeah, we're making like 200 to 300K a month from YouTube.
Holy crap.
From ads, from sponsors, from just digital stuff. And I was like, what? I was like, they make 200 to 300K a month net.
Wow.
No overhead, no risk, no employees, none of the bull crap I've been dealing with running a business for a long time. I was like, these guys are making more money than me with all this stuff. And people are being haters of them. I was a hater. And I was like, I'm the idiot. They're the smart ones doing this thing.
Right.
They got a way easier path. Why am I freaking, taking $15 million, $20 million of risk on hard money, 12-month loans, having to have project managers and callers and sales guys and all this crap. And they're just sitting here talking to a camera.
Wow.
And so instead of being a hater, I said, I'm in. That's a great opportunity. And so I said, what else do I not know about? And I had a friend, his name's Kong, start telling me about TikTok. He's like, you got to do TikTok, Ryan. You'd be really good at TikTok. And I was like, what's TikTok? So I started looking at it. I'm like, and everyone's like, at that time was like, it's a kid's app, whatever, right? And I was like, dude, this is like actually really entertaining. This style of
don't
content.
get me started, man. I used to go on vacation. I'd read a book every single day. Now I sit on TikTok for 6 freaking hours, mind-numbing videos
Exactly.
that don't do anything for me.
I know.
I'm like, God, please. I need to delete TikTok off my freaking phone is what I need to do.
But I saw it the same way you just said, and I was like, this is addicting, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I've never seen content like this. Now it's obviously like
they've got that algorithm that
kills
it's smarter than we are.
Yep.
And we can't pull away. Yeah.
So I saw that. I saw what YouTube was doing. I saw that there was no competition in either because no real estate people were taking it serious.
No, wow.
And I said, I'm all in. I have nothing else to do. So I literally bought everyone's course that was available. And I was like, I'm just going to research how to do this. And so once I started watching, I realized there was actually like a format to make it successful. Like what kind of thumbnails you needed, what kind of titles you needed, how you needed to hook people in the beginning, how you needed to do your ads. Like it was very systematic, just like flipping a house. I was like, oh, it's not luck. This is easy. So I started making YouTubes. I started making TikToks during that time. So like April, I want to say April, I spent all April studying. May I started. And within 3 months on TikTok, I had 400,000 followers.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
Or maybe that was like I can't remember. I had 400,000 like in some crazy time. Maybe it was 100,000 in 90 days and 400,000 by the end of 2020. Something crazy. And then on YouTube, I ended up getting to 75,000 by the end of 2020. So within like 6 months or 7 months. And so, and I saw the reward from it. Like, I was all in on it because I believed. I didn't even know what it would lead to. I was just like, but I know this is the path. And so I saw it, my own house flipping business. It didn't impact it that much because it's a local business.
Right. But
my house flipping business, I stepped away from and let it self-run. We had our best year ever without me being involved.
Oh, interesting.
Because I was busy being a YouTuber and a TikToker and all this stuff.
Sometimes the CEO is the bottleneck in a business. Maybe that's
or hopefully I set it up good.
Okay,
but nonetheless,
fair enough.
But nonetheless, I just knew that I had to pursue this opportunity, that now was the time to strike.
Yeah.
And I trusted the team. So anyways, we, I started doing my coaching. That was the first year I coached.
Oh.
And, we went from like basically nothing to building a coaching program, and we did 700K the first year. I did not know anything about funnels or digital marketing.
Right.
We had no like employees. It was just like, oh wow, that was like crazy.
Yeah.
There's no big events. There was nothing. And I saw my brokerage explode. I saw the tax firm explode. I just saw all these things just growing as a result of social media.
Wow.
And so then I was like, wow, I need to like double down on this even more. I was already a believer at that point.
You didn't have the podcast yet?
Nope.
Wow.
So the next year in 2021, I'm like, how do we do like this at the next level? And so I created the podcast in 2021. And, that's been amazing. So it's been 3 years now. And, we've had literally like every guest you could imagine, which is crazy. And yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how it all played out.
Wow. That's crazy, man. I didn't know all that. Now I know that, and I'm sure you agree with this. The people that add the most value in this world are really the most successful. And you add tremendous value. It's not all just a sales pitch. You're out there putting content out, valuable content. And I subscribe to the same methodology, not to the scale that you do. But would you agree with that comment? However.
Oh yeah. I mean, look. The thing I think about, and we were actually talking about this off camera, right?
Right.
Most people's biggest problem is they're always thinking about themselves internally.
Right.
So whenever I make content, I really think about the end user. And I'm like, what are their problems? What are they going through? What do they need help with? What are they thinking about? And that's how I get content ideas.
Yeah. We did we survey my students, we survey the public, and we ask what the pain points are, we ask what they're struggling with, we ask how what they're fearful of, and so on and so forth. And their responses are literally marketing gold, because they're telling us what they want help with, and even in the nomenclature, the verbiage of how they want to hear about it. So it's very, very valuable. Well, I know you just you started this lead program. You call it Lead Kitchen.
Lead Kitchen.
I don't know anything about it. Talk about it.
Real estate investors, are you tired of getting low quality leads and talking with sellers who've been hit up by everyone else? Well, what if you could get inbound leads of motivated sellers on autopilot without any effort? Well, that's exactly what we do at Lead Kitchen. Over the years, I've spent millions of dollars on direct-to-seller marketing. I've done PPC, I've done TV commercials, I've done cold calling, text messaging, direct mail. I've done the pay-per-lead services. And look, all of them can work. A lot of them don't. At the end of the day, I have found a new method that is getting me better results than I've ever seen in my career. I'm getting lower cost per leads than ever before, and it's not just in Las Vegas, it's across the country. And so if you want to take advantage of this new innovative marketing strategy that takes no effort on your end, I want you to go to leadkitchen.com and book a call with my team today. Imagine having my team running your marketing with the same leads that I'm getting in my business. That's what you can have. So just go to leadkitchen.com today and book a call.
Yeah. So once again, like listening to feedback from people, like what are the problems in the world currently? And one of the biggest problems is lead cost. Like lead costs are getting out of control.
Now, what type of leads we talking about here?
So, I mean, like literally leads they're like marketing expenses are through the roof everywhere.
Right.
Whether I want to market to get people to WealthCon, whether I want to market to get a student, whether I want to market to a motivated seller,
Gotcha.
investors.
Gotcha.
It's just,
all of it.
Advertising is just getting more and more expensive.
Yep. Same here. Yeah.
Yep.
Same.
Every business I talk to, that is their number one problem right now. Now, in the real estate space, I decided to solve it for my own company. So I just, for years, I used TV, I used PPC, all these things. And I just saw that it just kept going up and up and up. And by the time, it was December of last year, TV and PPC were like $500 and $800 for one lead.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, when does this end? Like, how does it even end profitably at the end of the day? Right? Like, we're still able to make a profit, but man, like, it's not trending the right way. So I was like, I need to find something better. And so I started down this path of trying all these different things. And I don't know why it took me so long to do this, but it just occurred to me that I was like, well, I already have spent millions on social media marketing, creating organic content, running ads for my events and my coaching and services and other stuff. I was like, why am I not running social media ads to sellers? Like, it never occurred to me to do that because I was already for one, I'd been disengaged from the flipping company for years.
I see.
It's just been running. And
so you're talking about social media ads more geographically specific.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started running, Facebook ads to start outside of Vegas because I was actually already like fed up with Vegas. I'm like, dude, let's run nationwide, see how cheap we could get deals in other spots like the Midwest and other stuff. And sure enough, I saw like leads for crazy costs, like $20 a lead. And I'm like, dude, even if just freaking that $20 a lead, you have so many at bats, it's crazy.
Right.
We're used to paying $800 for one, right? And so we did that for about a couple of months and we locked up a ton of deals. But then I realized that it was hard to sell the deals for wholesale because we couldn't buy them as flips. And it's hard to be in lots of different markets.
Yeah, because you have to have end buyers. If you
gotta have end buyers. And yeah, we have tools like Investor Lift and stuff. But the problem was when you're in a super small rural market, it's almost impossible to sell it.
Right.
So I was like, all right, let me go tier 2 markets then. So I go to tier 2 markets and, like San Antonio, you just got a deal in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Like we got a couple of deals in San Antonio.
Nice, great market.
Yeah, Kansas City, other things like that, right? And we had success, but still same problem, man. Like at the end of the day, if you don't have boots on the ground, you don't have like a huge buyers list, it becomes hard.
Right.
And so I was like, dude, you know what? Once again, dumb of me, but I'm like, why didn't I just test this on Vegas first in the first place? Like that was just dumb of me from the beginning. I was just so dissatisfied with Vegas because, for a number of reasons. Vegas is in my opinion, and I've heard this from others too, so it's not biased, but it's the most competitive market in the country.
Really?
Correct.
Interesting.
With single family direct to seller.
Interesting.
It's ruthless. And I saw that literally being in so many other markets, like seeing how our offers were perceived and competition. In Vegas, you're going to have 4 people competing against you, no matter who you talk to.
Interesting.
So anyways, I wanted to explore the other markets. Anyway, so I came back to Vegas and, back then, or not back then, but went back to what we always did, right? On appointments, we already have a huge buyers list. We have presence. We know the market. We know what we can pay. And then sure enough, just started locking up deals. Okay. And our lead cost was significantly less. It was $150 to $200 versus $800. And ever since then, we've just been running it there. And it's funny because we still see competition, right? But I know they're paying $800 for the lead. So we have a huge advantage. But nonetheless, during this 6-month period, I start getting my students asking, they're like, dude, can you run, like, can you teach us how to run these ads? Can you do it for us? Like, what can you do? I'm like, honestly, like, I don't really want to do that yet. Like, I'm busy just perfecting it for myself. But if I do, how many of you would be interested? And a bunch were like, dude, if you could run it for us, we would do it. And I was like, okay. So about a month later, I was like, all right, guys, remember when I said, who's interested? Here's the deal. Here's how we're going to run it. And basically, I just did a profit split model. I said, you cover the cost of the ads. I will do everything else. We'll use my face, my ads, our landing pages, everything we know works. It's already tested and proven in my market. We'll run them in yours. And all I want is 20% of the profit.
Wow.
And they're like, deal. And so
love it.
I started it with the beta test of them, worked out different kinks. Then I launched it to the public about a month ago. And now, we're in lots of different markets.
You're off and running. Wow.
Yeah.
That's how it happened. Great model. What a great model. Now, what's the website?
Leadkitchen.com.
Leadkitchen.com. I love it, man. What a great idea. Brilliant idea. Well, so you've got, back to social media, you've got 2 million followers on social media and you've had 1 billion views. I missed that in your bio. I just saw that when you were talking. I looked down for a minute. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So, as part of your journey, I've got a couple last questions for you. As part of your journey, talk about any epiphanies that you had, any like aha moments. You've talked about a few of them, but if there are any that we missed here where you're like, okay, now I freaking get it. Anything come to mind? Like you're in larger multifamily now. Was there an epiphany that drove that, or just talk about anything that comes to mind? Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as you develop over the years, you have different epiphanies, right? So 10 years ago, I talked about, oh, dude, I could actually be my own buyer. I could flip. I just needed hard money. That was a huge epiphany.
That was a big one.
Right? Social media was a huge epiphany. Like, dude, these guys are making that much money off social media. Like, I'm more talented than them. Let's go.
Have you monetized the social media thing as well? Do you get money from YouTube and from?
I mean, we do, but it's just like, I don't even,
it doesn't matter.
It's so small compared to what it produces for the businesses.
Gotcha.
So I treat my social media very different than how they would.
Okay.
Right? Where they're true, like, let's just call it influencers. They make money off ads and sponsors. I don't take any sponsors. I'm like, go to my business.
Gotcha. That's it. Got it. Yeah, same here.
So, social media was one. I would say a recent one was, dude, and this is something from interviewing so many guests, and this is why I love the podcast, and I'm sure you do too, is like you talk to so many smart people. Mm-hmm. So I've had a lot of smart people over the years, but one actually was an epiphany, and sometimes it takes hearing it multiple times, but I had Neil Patel on my show about over a year ago, and Neil, I mean, dude's not even 40 yet, but he may or may not be a billionaire.
Really?
And he manages ad spend and marketing for the biggest companies in the world. So like Apple, Microsoft, that kind of stuff, right? And Neil told me over a year ago, he's like, Ryan, if I could give you any advice, just stick to real estate. And I'm like, but Neil, I like this and I like that and this and that, right? Because in reality, I'm still a new entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I only became like a true entrepreneur when I retired in 2017.
Yeah, like 7 years ago.
Yeah, so
when you told me that date, I'm like, holy crap, he's only been at it 7 years.
Yeah, and so like I'm still trying to test and find my capabilities and what I can and can't do. So anyways, I was like, Neil, like real estate will always be a part of what I do, but like, whatever, right? Fast forward a year. he's at WealthCon, my last one, speaks. We do another podcast update. And once again, now I have new perspective a year later. And I've interviewed other people. I've talked to other people. And like one of the things I realized was, yes, I need to focus on real estate because it's always going to be there. It's what I know better than anything else. Yes, I've developed other skills that I'm really good at too.
Right.
But I can't pursue them all. Right. But one thing that stuck out to me was, he was like, Ryan, we have the statistics. I manage billions of dollars of ads. Like I know what works, what makes money. He goes, so if you were to only just do content about real estate, you would make more money, 1,000%, because you're going to get the right buyer. You'll get less views, but you'll make more money. And I was like, I actually would agree with you on that, 1,000%. If I cut out all the non-real estate things that I talk about or do and just focus on selling my real estate stuff. Because he's like, dude, you could own so much multifamily and you could have $1 billion plus of assets. Like you can do that. And I was like, you're right, 100%. And he goes, so, you could do that. He's like, for me, I focus only on digital marketing because that's my thing. It's what I've done for 20 years. It's built all my wealth to this point. And I thought about it, even from his standpoint as a digital marketer. And I thought about all these rich people I had really met and interviewed and other stuff. Like he made hundreds of millions in just marketing. Gary Vee, same thing. Gary Vee's core business is marketing. I had another girl on the podcast. She did marketing for lawyers and killed it. But basically they were all helping companies get leads. And it was like my epiphany of that. Okay, my true skill set is, yes, I'm good at real estate, but I'm really good at marketing. Podcast is a form of marketing. Ads are marketing.
All the social media is marketing. Yeah, WealthCon, all of it.
All of it is marketing. Like that's my true skill. That's what's helped me scale all the flips so quickly. I was always good at marketing and getting deal flow.
Interesting.
And I was like, that was the epiphany. It was like, wow, actually what I'm really good at is marketing. Thinking about offers and ads and products and content, and real estate happens to be the core niche.
That's dead on, man. That's
of what I market.
On. Yeah.
And so it just so happened I had all this lead kitchen stuff that I was building too, and it just clicked. I was like, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing that is merging the two worlds together and solving the biggest need in this industry. And if these guys could make hundreds of millions doing lead gen and marketing, and I am the face of this industry, and I know how to market better than anyone in this industry, who's going to touch me when it comes to lead gen? And when you think about a business that's sellable, my wholesale business is never going to be sellable. Education could or could not be sellable, depending on who you ask. But a marketing company, a lead gen company, if we're producing millions of dollars per month, per whatever, right?
Definitely can sell it.
But that's a super valuable company.
Yeah.
And it just clicked. And I was like, I need to pursue real estate and marketing. And he's right. Like, if I want to go get clients for that company, I need to talk about real estate more. Yeah. These other guys that, if I just talk general business is great, I am going to get entrepreneurs. And my audience is a lot of entrepreneurs who, quite frankly, every entrepreneur wants to buy real estate. So it's still like, it's great. It's still part of the ecosystem, right?
So you're bridging marketing with real estate. And we talked about it when you interviewed me about playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
And you're right, man. Marketing is definitely your freaking strength. So yeah, no, you absolutely made complete sense to me.
But you know what's funny about Neil? I'll say this. So we talked about it and he was like, okay, Ryan, you know what's ironic though? Because he's not a real estate guy. Neil's funny because he's not a real estate guy,
right?
But he had a $20 million home in Vegas, a $20 million home in Bel Air, He's like, I suck at real estate. I'm like, yeah, you just buy, because you're so rich. You buy real estate for fun.
Cash for real estate.
Yeah, right. He does. But he was like, Ryan, you know what's funny though? Even though we're talking about this, he's like, the content I like most from you is your non-real estate content. Like, I like your different lifestyle content and other stuff. And I was like, that's the point too, though, because if I didn't have that other content, we're not friends and I'm not learning from you. I don't know Ed Milet. I don't know all these guys that are now my friends because they're not real estate guys, right? Real estate guys mainly only know real estate guys.
Right.
But I know pretty much everyone now because I chose to be broad and talk to everybody. And it's just one of those things now where I'm like, well, I have the relationships. I did it. Now do I go back to my roots and start making way more real estate content because my main focus is this lead generation company.
Is it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear about it a year from now when we meet again and circle back on this. I want to talk about something I've never talked about on the show before. And guys, stay with me here. You all know that I'm separated from my ex, and I'm in some relationship coaching, and I'm working through becoming a better human being, becoming better in relationship. And one of the things that my relationship coach told me is, he's a Christian and deeply spiritual, and that's my word for Christian in this case. And he told me that I should really explore it. And so, I was telling Ryan before we started recording that, the last time I interviewed with him, I was just so impressed because I knew that he was Christian, and he never pushed it on me or anything like that, but I could tell he really freaking lives it. And I was telling this to your friend that interviewed me a couple of weeks ago when I was here last time, Brian, and I've had some bad experiences with people that hang their hat on religion, and they're really nefarious. And that really, I used to say if somebody's religious, I'd put my hand over my wallet and run. And that's why I was so impressed with you when I met you. And I'm exploring this whole Christianity thing right now. And so, and I really feel like you're, what's the word I want to use? Just a shining, exemplary example of how to do it right and really own it and live it. I don't even know the question to ask, but I don't know, maybe you can speak to it a little bit. I know, guys, I've never talked about this on the show before. Hang with me because I really think it's important.
Yeah. Well, first off, I, just want to congratulate you and just give you kudos for speaking about it, right? It's the first time and you're exploring it, and it's not easy to talk about things like this in public, right? But I'll say this, just hearing your story and everything else, the reason we've been talking off camera a little bit too is just because I can just feel it that you are close. And the first thing that you and I talked about when we met today, you're like, dude, I had this really deep conversation with Brian about faith.
Right.
And I was like, tell me more. Because that's what gets my ears perked up. I could talk business. I could talk everything all day, every day. But when we start talking about faith and eternity, it gets me more excited than anything because I'm like, okay, now we're actually talking about something that is extremely important. The most important question isn't should you guys start doing social media or buy multifamily or flip a house or whatever, right? Those are all just things that you're going to do here on earth, which is a very limited time in the span of eternity. And so I get excited about talking about eternity because, in my opinion, it is the most important question that people need to think about, and they don't. Because there's only one guarantee in life. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Right? And you're going to be dead way longer than you're alive.
Right.
And so do you believe that something happens when you die? Do you believe that you were created? Do you believe that this isn't some just coincidence and we just turn to ash? If you do, the next logical thing to do is say, okay, what happens then? Because there's lots of theories about what happens. And in most theories, if you're wrong, the consequences aren't good. And when I say theories, religions, philosophies, whatever, right? And so people just kind of ignore it, just like they ignore other things in their life. They ignore their health, they ignore their relationships because they don't want to deal with the hard things of life. But the crazy thing about faith is that if you just accept it and you start believing, your life changes. Literally the Bible tells us you become a new creation when you accept Jesus. And so for us, we've gone through different evolutions in business and in life, different seasons, right? And so if you were to, believe what Jesus says, he literally says, the moment you believe, you're indwelled with the Holy Spirit. You are a new creation. God is dwelling inside of you now. And the way you used to act, the way you used to see the world, the desires that you used to have, they go away. You're a new creation. You are going to start down this path of something completely different. And I always try to explain this to business guys in business terms, even though they're completely like not even close, but it helps them understand. And I'm just like, look, remember that time, for me in my story that I learned about hard money. It was like the greatest revelation ever. For 5 years, I was just wandering in real estate thinking it sucked, thinking it was terrible, thinking that, oh, well, yeah, that works for them because they got money. They already got it figured out.
Right.
And then in reality, it was like, no, dude, just literally call a hard money lender, you idiot. You could have been doing this for 5 years.
Wow.
And that's literally what faith is. You've heard about Jesus. Other people listening to this have heard about Jesus. Maybe you haven't, right? But in most cases, people have heard about him, right? But they don't really know about him.
Right.
They don't know what's possible. They don't know that, dude, all the anxiety, the stress, the depression, all those feelings, they go away. Like the Bible constantly tells us, do not be anxious about anything, Like for anyone listening, go read Matthew 6. It's probably my favorite chapter in the Bible, but it just talks about, man, don't be anxious about tomorrow. Why are you worried about tomorrow? Look at the birds of the air. They don't worry. God always provides for the birds. He has forever. They don't worry, yet we worry. We worry about what's to come all the time. And, at the end of the day, I just think that if I had this irrefusable offer where, on stage at a business event, and I was like, hey guys, I'm literally going to give you all my coaching for free. I'm going to work with you one-on-one. I'm going to be with you all the time. We're going to get through any problem that you have for the rest of your life. And then after you're dead, it's going to get even better. And here's the best part. It actually doesn't even cost you anything. It's literally free. Well, it would go one of two ways. One, people would believe it and take it. Or two, people would say there's no way that's true. It's a scam. And they would walk away. Those are the two responses to that offer, right? And that's what happens in faith right now. I could tell you that, dude, if you just believe, your life is going to be completely transformed. Your place in heaven is secured for eternity. It's going to be amazing. And God's going to be with you from this point forward, and your life is going to be completely different. Your marriage can be restored. All of those things can be restored. And you could believe it. And then you'll have to see what happens, with the belief. Or you could say, that's too good to be true. There's no way. And then, you walk away. And that's literally the choice that everyone makes.
It's when Brian was interviewing me on his show, he talked about an experience he had with you where he was really anxiety ridden and so on and so forth. And you just said, hey, let's just pray. And you prayed with him and he said it was all gone. And I was just so astounded by that, hearing it from someone else. And I knew, that you were very devout, but you didn't like push it or anything. The first time we interviewed, I don't know, it just came up in passing and I was so impressed with that. And so, that's why I gave you a shout out before we even started recording, because I was so impressed with the fact that you're real, that you really believe, you're not hypocritical about it, because that's been my mindset just based on the experience.
And I appreciate that. And let me tell you two parts about like hypocrisy and like even Brian's situation. So number one, with hypocrisy, people are so scared to accept faith and forgiveness because that's the first step of this, like, right? Number one, acknowledging that, dude, I'm a sinner, man. Like I have screwed up so many times in my life. I do not deserve God's love. I do not deserve to go to heaven.
Right.
I've screwed up a lot. I've lost money. I've lost people money. I've screwed people. I have been a bad husband. I've been a bad dad. I've been the best boss. There's many times I've screwed up, right? I've got lust in my heart.
Right.
Dude, it's hard. Being a human is hard. And yet God still forgives me despite that. And when you have that just like belief that you're like, wow, God loves me so much that he's willing to forgive me for those issues. That's unbelievable. Yeah. And most people have a problem accepting that because they don't believe that they can be saved from what they've done. And people have done way worse things than me, right? And yet God still saves them. And by the way, people in that Bible, there's a Bible right next to you. People in that Bible, the heroes of the faith, have done terrible things, murdered people, adultery, all these things, and yet God still redeems them because they have true repentance and forgiveness and faith. And so I think on the hypocrisy side, sometimes people have a hard time accepting Jesus because of their past.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I don't care that you've been in prison. I don't care that you've been a drug addict. I don't care that you're an alcoholic. I don't care that you lost your kids, cheated on your wife. It does not matter. God can forgive anything. So that's one thing. The second side of it is, and this is why I have my nonprofit. It's called Wealthy Kingdom. So we have Bible studies nationwide. And the reason I have this is because rich people, Jesus literally says, rich people are the hardest people to get into heaven. That's in the Bible. Really? You might have heard the saying, like, it's harder for a rich person to get into heaven than it is for the camel to go through the eye of the needle.
Wow.
That's from the Bible. The reason Jesus says that is because, think about it. If I'm rich, you're rich. We've had so much success in business and life in the world. We've had the cars, the money, the houses, whatever, right? You don't think anything's wrong. You're like,
that's very interesting.
You're like, bro, who are you to tell me that I'm not living the right way?
Right.
You know, especially if it's coming from a pastor or somebody who's broke, but saved, right? And they're like, bro, like, you don't even know what you're doing wrong. You don't even know what you're missing.
Right.
And you're like, who are you to tell me I'm wrong? Right. And Jesus knew that. There's countless examples in the Bible of rich people denying the gift because they're just like, bro, like, this is my life. Like, it's great. And then there are countless examples of rich people who do give their life to Christ and they become more generous. They become even bigger and great. And, but the point was, Jesus was like, the rich person has a harder time than the poor person. The poor person has nothing to lose by accepting Jesus.
That makes complete sense.
So with Brian, he's a classic example of that, where on paper, his life was amazing. He's a millionaire before 30 years old, great wife, family, status, following, all these things on paper. But, you know, having been with him since 2018, I knew what he was missing. And I knew for all these years that, like, it was never going to get solved until he finally came to terms with that. So he always struggled with anxiety. He always struggled with fear. Even though he's a guy taking action and doing deals and stuff, he still has fear, whether you see it or not, right? And finally, you know, I don't know how transparent everything else was, but, you know, he's finally and it takes a low point in life, which you had to go through, and him too. And finally, that's when they're open, when they finally reach that low point. And I was like, Brian, I'm telling you, dude, like, you already know what I'm going to say, but I'm just telling you, like, this is the way that you get rid of all this. And he's like, I'm open to it now. And I'm like, okay, we're going to pray for you. And like I said, for me, I believe that I have God inside of me. I have the Holy Spirit. The disciples and all these people in the Bible were performing miracles. They were healing the sick. Right. Anxiety is a sickness. And I believe that those things happen today. I still believe miracles happen today. And, you know, I just prayed over him and I was like, God, you know, I pray that Brian would submit to you. I pray that he would finally accept you. I pray that you would rid him of the anxiety, the depression, all these negative feelings that he's going through. Whatever spirits are around him, get rid of it. And, you know, we sat there and prayed. It wasn't like crazy long. There was no like shaking or anything, but we prayed. And, you know, his testimony, like
he said, he told me it was gone after that. I mean, it was, you know, it was very impressive to hear it from somebody else. Yeah. Yeah. You know, guys, I know, you know, I may have lost a couple of you on this, and let me tell you, for me to even have this conversation publicly is kind of shocking, because you would have called me agnostic 2 years ago. So I mean, you know, but
the biggest evangelist in the Bible used to kill Christians.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. His name's Paul.
Wow.
He wrote half the New Testament.
No kidding.
And so he had the same thing. Yeah. A day before he got saved, he was literally killing Christians, and Jesus came to him. Wow. And then he became the biggest evangelist for the faith. And imagine all the crap he had to go through of like, isn't that the guy who was just killing us?
Right.
Why are we listening to that guy? And it's like, bro, you can be transformed in an instant. Would you mind if I pray for you and everyone viewing?
Not at all.
Okay. So I'm gonna pray for everybody. And so for anyone listening, you know, whether, you know, this is going to be for Rod and all the listeners, but, you know, I just think that if you haven't accepted Jesus yet, your life can be transformed. And no matter what you're going through, it does not matter. So I'll pray for us. So Father God, thank you so much for this podcast. Thank you for, just everything that you have done to this point, especially with Rod and I's relationship, God. Thank you for using Brian as a testimony too. I didn't even know that they were talking and that, they had this conversation, God, but we know that everything, it does not happen out of coincidence. Nothing is coincidence. In fact, you already knew how things were going to play out way before any of this happened, God. And so I just pray that, whatever's going on in Rod's life, I pray that first off, his relationship with his ex can be restored, God. We know that you are a healer and that you can do anything. And so I pray that his marriage would be restored. I pray that you would do a work inside of him, that he would just seek you with a hunger, and that he would just accept you as his Lord and Savior, God. And that, whatever is holding him back from submitting, that he would just give it all up to you, that he would submit that, whether it's regrets or anything else, that we know you would forgive him for that, and that it would be no longer in his life. It would not hold him back, any anxiety, fears, or anything else, God. So I pray for those. And I pray for just all the viewers and listeners today, that if they're in a similar boat, if they've got some kind of past, some mistakes, some fears, if they don't know who you are yet, God, I pray that they would pray this prayer with me, that they would just, say, Father, I know that I'm a sinner. I know that there's nothing I can do to atone for those sins, but that I accept that your son came here as Lord, and he died for my sins. He was the atonement. I pray, I just believe that he is the Son of God. I believe that he's the Lord of my life, and that I believe, by accepting him, I'm choosing to follow God and follow Jesus for the rest of my life. And I know that, everything I do is going to be for him, God. So I pray that, anybody who is hearing this would pray that prayer, and they would just accept Jesus as Lord and Savior. And I know that their life will be completely different. So thank you so much for everyone listening to this. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for Rod for being just so bold and vulnerable to allow all of this to happen. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, man. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Well, we can't go any further than that. So I really appreciate you coming on my show, my friend. I appreciate your love and what you just did. And yeah, that's it. I got nothing else. I got nothing else.
Amen.
Thanks, brother. Amen.
Yep.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Likewise.